Hi, this is Katie and welcome to Chapter 1 Overview video. I'm not sure what to put on the screen because what we're going to do in this chapter is just go through it as if you were in class, but I'll go through it fast so you won't go to sleep on me or use this to fall asleep. But in this chapter, we're just introducing Windows Server 2012. And you'll read the chapter, you'll do the quiz. Maybe you should do that first because that helps you go through the chapter. And then you have lab connections and activities, which I'm going to work on next after after a few other things. But maybe what I'll do is just pull up a Word document and just type some major points out of this chapter so you can I'll throw it in Blackboard, and then you can save it as a reference for you. So like I said, this chapter is called Introducing Windows Server 2012 Release 2, and it serves as an introduction to the operating systems. So in this chapter, we're going to learn some basic management tools that are available in this release, different roles and services that can be installed. We're going to look at, and then as we go on with this class, we'll do some of those things. So, in the beginning, it explains the role of a server operating system. So we have operating systems like, okay, I'm just going to write notes, and I'll throw this out there. It'll be pretty basic, but we have operating systems. And those are things like Windows 8, whoops, that's 9, Linux, any variation of Linux is operating system, and also an OS. XP, for example, Mac has an OS, and then we have network operating systems, or NOSs. And the primary NOSs that are in the field are Novell has a Novell NetWare server, not too popular anymore, primarily in schools. Like you'll notice if you go to JRCC, we still use a Novell network. We have Windows Server networks in the background doing different things, but we use that for file. We use that for file and sharing resources. And then there are Mac NOSs, and Linux has an NOS as well, which is a network operating system. And then the most popular in this, if you look at what's used, most widely used in small to large networks is Windows NOSs. And that's what we're here doing, learning about Windows NOS 2012 Release 2. Now when you look at Chapter 4, a network operating system, NOSs, we're referring to also server OSs, server operating systems, versus desktop operating systems. So that's explained in the book, but Microsoft in this book is referring it to a SOS, which is probably not very smart of them, but sorry, I thought that was funny. But it's a network operating system. Now, Windows Server 2012 has different releases, and when you get access to DreamSpark, I'm not going to use bullets. When you get access to DreamSpark, you can download and pick different versions. There's the data center version, which is in chapter 4, or I'm sorry, page 4. It explains the variations from the editions, but data center is probably the most popular version if you're running a medium to large network. We also have the standard edition and Essentials edition and Foundation, and there are different variations of them as well. So there's not just one server, there's multiple servers that you can pick from. Now, I would suggest that you do and download the data center version. Let's see what we have in the back of the book. Data center version. So when we start doing the activities in this book, we're going to use the data center version. So read through chapter or page 4 and 5 and 6 to see the differences between them all. Primarily things like, does it do the virtualization? Can you have multiple virtual instances? What are you using this server for? So you'll want to kind of compare those two. So standard is it's not, I don't want to say very limited, but more limited than what data center version is. And then essentials and foundation are more specialized if you don't need a normal network operating system. So read through the book on the different the different releases of Windows Server 2012. There are many different things, or multiple different options. Okay, the next, let's see. This is what I'd be doing in class, looking. Okay, the next concept in this chapter is about Windows Server and the private cloud. Cloud computing is just a collection of technologies that are used for shared applications, storage, network, different resources. And cloud is a kind of a new term, but we're kind of getting more familiar with the term cloud computing because we're using things like Microsoft's OneDrive, and a lot of our phones have the ability to use cloud resources where we put things out there in the cloud or out there in a network somewhere or multiple networks, and then when we want to access it, we log on to it and download it to our local system. So this kind of eliminates the need for, sometimes can eliminate the need for things like memory sticks and external drives, but cloud storage is typically something we pay for. So there, in the book, it also talks about public cloud, which is what which are cloud computing services offered by a third party, or private cloud, which is what you, as a network administrator, can set up on your Windows server so that your employees can access it. So examples of the public drive are like Dropbox and SkyDrive. And Google has one as well. But what you would do with your Windows server is you would set up private cloud, and then you would let people access that, and it'd be part of your network. So it's not out there in the world for everyone to access, and you can control security on it and allow people to have different access rights and so on. So that's a new feature with Windows Server 2012, and it's really keeping up with the way that the field of networking is going. The field of computers is going. One other thing that's important when we look at the different, I should get this. I'll throw in here a license link or a licensing link. One of the things that you should check out when you go to, when you're reading through the chapter, let's see if I can get it, Microsoft, is look at the different prices for Microsoft licensing. Let me see if I can just type in this link. Oh, it's kind of long. Licensing Microsoft servers quite expensive, and you have to, depending on how many computers that you want on your network, pay for different licensing. So in a small network, it's, you might do some like a Linux server or something if you only have a few computers, but any medium to large size company is going to use Microsoft and their licensing, and that's where a huge part of their IT budget goes. So I'll throw this basic link in this. No, I don't want to do a survey. I'll throw this basic link for licensing out here, and I don't think it's in the book, but you can get an idea of how much the pricing is for it. And this, this is something that you don't necessarily, um, well, it is something that you need to be aware of when you're going into IT. There's probably a chief financial officer that needs to know when you upgrade things, but this also makes a big difference in why some companies are still using Windows Server 2008 and not Server 2012, because if you're a small company and you don't have a lot of money, you're not going to upgrade. So check that link out. Now, one of the other concepts, core technologies in this chapter, this is referring to Server Manager, NTFS, Active Directory, the Mac Management Console, Disk Management, File and Print Sharing, and Windows Networking. So I know that was a lot of things I rattled off, but it starts on page 9. I'm sorry, page 8, and it explains these. This is page 8 of our textbook, and I've given you the PDF in Blackboard. These are the core things, all of these concepts we're going to learn and use as we go through this chapter. So how Server Manager is a single interface for installing and configuring our server roles. NTFS is the file system for Microsoft. It's comparable to FAT32, but has some features that are specific to Microsoft networks. Active Directory is our central management for users and groups. So we'll use Active Directory, we'll use the Management Console to manage Active Directory, which allows us to create users and groups and set up roles and set up rights to things like file and print sharing, which is why we have servers primarily. Share files, share printing, share applications, share internet. And then Windows networking concepts. So that was a page 8. Page 8. Oh, and as we go through, I'll make another video once I get my server installed next, but yay, another video. When you get through these, when we do some of these activities for the assignment out of this chapter, we're going to use Active Directory, or look at Active Directory and some of the attributes, but we have to get the server installed. So I'm going to use VM Player and use the CD in the back of the book and install my server that way. So we'll look at those core technologies in our next video. I just want to use this video as a quick overview of, am I probably talking too long, of the major concepts of this chapter. Okay, 13 minutes is quick. A client access license, just do a quick overview of what we've learned so far, or what you should have read so far through page. Oh, this chapter's not too long. Well, I don't know. Through page, some of these things in the chapter, I don't know what page number it is. I'm not going to fumble through it. But CAL is the client access license, and you need this for each user who logs onto the server. So if you have a server and you have 20 users, you need a license for every user. Not every computer. Active Directory, another quick overview. Sometimes it's easier for me to type. Is used to centralize our authentication. Oh, just ignore my misspellings. And authenticate to the Windows network. And Active Directory and the console management you'll find is pretty easy to use, especially if you've done any type of resource sharing within your Windows system. Now, if you're a Linux user, you've probably used Windows anyway before. So this chapter also talks about protocols, and we'll configure protocols throughout this book and what we're learning. Protocols, TCP/IP, the primary one, and we'll look at both version 4 and version 6. And version 6 obviously is newer. Essentials, this is a quick difference between these versions. Essentials is for a very super small business with 25 users or less. All right, what else is major in this chapter? There's a lot of acronyms. AD, Active Directory, DS, Domain Services. And as we go on and use these tools, they'll become not so hard to remember. LDS, I should be typing these, shouldn't I? LDS is Lightweight Directory Services. I'm not going to type them all. Forget it. That takes too long. Lightweight Directory Services. Sorry, my mom's texting me. Right Management Services, RMS. DHCP, we will configure a DHCP server in this class, which allows us to dole out IP addresses from a pool. So domain, our dynamic host configuration protocol. We'll also work with DNS for internet. DNS resolves domain names for us. Obviously, we'll do file and storage services because that's one of the major reasons for NOS. And then we'll, at the very end, look at the Hyper-V, which is the hyper-virtualization. So, there was a lot of different roles I just talked about. Server roles. You just type these out real quick so you have an idea of the things we just talked about. Active Directory Certificate Services. This is for our licensing, creating, issuing our certificates, creating, issuing, I'm not adding commas, managing digital certificates. We will work with this. We'll work with Active Directory Domain Services. This is how we manage our users. We will do other domain related roles, such as the Federation services, the LDS, and the Lightweight Directory services, and the the rights management services. Oh, these are where all these things, all these acronyms come in. DHCP for IP pool or dynamic host configuration protocol. These are things we're going to work with. DNS resolves domain names. Now I assume you have taken a previous networking course, so we don't have to go into explaining what all of these are. If you're not sure, then you can read it as well. File and storage services, Hyper-V. There's Hyper-V is the virtualization. Network policy we're going to work with, and access services. This is how we can remotely update computers. I don't say that with a question, but I'm just trying to figure out how to explain it. How we can remotely update computers. So say we have a patch that comes out. Yes, patches are needed in Microsoft servers. Actually, they're needed on every computer. A patch comes out and we have to deploy it to 100 computers. I do not want to walk or send my employee to walk through 100 computers, so I would use access services and network policies to push that out. We'll also talk about print and document services. These are some of the, again, the server roles, the things that go on with Windows Server, and remote access, where we can access it from outside of our network. And part of the network policy and access services is another concept, Windows deployment. I forgot about that. Windows deployment services. All right, so those are some of the server roles. Now, the last, to finish up this chapter, I think so. Yeah, to finish up this chapter, it talks about new and enhanced features. Of Server 2012. Now, they won't mean anything to you unless you've used another server, a previous version of Server, but the major thing is the Hyper-V. It's allowed for our private cloud initiative, and it's just keeping up with how technology is going nowadays, where everybody wants to access things remotely. Server Core, there's smaller disk and memory footprints of the server, so it takes less to run more. The server core installation only uses the 5 gigs of disk space, which compared to a GUI install was 9 gigs. So it's just more efficient, more smooth in how it runs, and of course time for an upgrade, as with any piece of computer things. What did you say? Let's see. I think that's it for now. I think that when we go, that's an overview of the major things that you'll want to look at in this chapter. And when we go through our activities, which I'll do together, we can do kind of do the activity with me video. So we'll get used to how we run this server as if you were in class. We'll use all these things. So I'll save that. I'll post it into Blackboard, and thanks for listening to this quick overview video. Have a great day.